everyone to South Florida AGC Safety Session. My name is Carlos Cabrillo. I'm the Executive Director of the South Florida AGC. I want to welcome you to our August meeting. Took July off. I hope you guys had a fantastic summer. My kids start school next week. I got to be honest, I'm happy to go back to my work schedule. So, if my kids are listening to this one day, sorry guys, but go back to school, leave me alone. Hey, great day today. I want to start off the meeting by thanking our sponsors. As always, Kelly Cronenberg, amazing. Kelly Cronenberg reached out, allowed us to use this space for our meetings. We play a role. I mean, I'm not being humble when I say this, but I feel like we play a role in bettering the safety environment for all of our member companies. And Kelly Cronenberg allows us to do that by hosting us each month. So thank you to the team at Kelly Cronenberg. Also want to say thank you to the team at Milwaukee. They have a national event going on today, so they're not here today, but Milwaukee sponsors this event year round. They sponsor a lot of events for our organization, and we're very grateful to them for allowing us to do our job. I also want to thank Universal Engineering Sciences for their support of our organization as well. And thank you guys for showing up. This is a great meeting. I love freaking you guys out a little bit because then I get the cream of the crop out here. So thank you very much. Very quickly, important event going on. Saturday, September 9th. Debbie, is that correct?
Yes.
Saturday, September 9th. We have our safety fair. Safety fair has been off post-pandemic. It's our first one back. We had it in April. We had some issues. We had to reschedule it, and we're now about a month away from that event. You all have received or will receive flyers today that we'd like for you to put up at your job sites. This event isn't for your employees. This event is for that employee that doesn't have safety training with their employer. We want to make this a safer environment for them. Our safety event, for those of you who are unfamiliar, it is one whole day of safety training. Our goal is to give every attendee, our goal is to give every attendee at least 2 safety courses that day. Safety classes start at 8 a.m. We then break for lunch. We provide breakfast. We provide lunch for these employees. They don't need to leave the campus. Hopefully they'll walk out with a training certificate in either aerial lift safety, telehandler safety, trench safety. We also do fall protection, very important. Classes are all offered in English and Spanish. So please put those flyers up on your work site. It's really, all these workers live off of their phones. So there's a QR code on it. They can click that QR code, register for the event, and join us. Encourage your subs to sign their folks up. More importantly, we need help for this event. This is a 100% volunteer event. We're usually pulling money out of our pocket to pay for the event, and that's okay. It's worth it, but we need instructors. So I'll give you guys the puppy dog face. Yes, you guys know it's coming after this event. But please, if you have folks on the payroll that maybe you can pay for an extra day of work to come out and train for us, or if you yourself want to volunteer a Saturday to come out and train these folks, we'd appreciate it. We are always looking for instructors, and we're looking for volunteers. So if it's something you'd like to help us with, we would greatly appreciate it. Please help us host this first safety fair back. It's important for our community. That being said, thank you again for joining us. What we're here to talk about today, and if you give me a second, I'll pull up my PowerPoint presentation. What we're here to talk about today is Miami-Dade County's proposed heat standard. Thank you all very much for joining us. Here to talk about Miami-Dade County heat standard. So very quick, number one, I am not a safety professional, right? I run an association. So it's a little different for me to be presenting to you all. I understand that you are the experts here. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be running through what these standards are. If you have something to add regarding differences between what's going on here or similarities with the way OSHA runs things, great. So, like I said, I'm not a safety professional. Your expertise is wanted. So if you got something to say, chime in. Not a big deal. Number two, if I say something wrong, or misrepresent something, let me know. Number three, we have Angelo here, which gives me, it's like, he's like my, my warm security blanket. So he can answer some of your questions as well. Okay, Angelo, partner here at the firm, specifically, he's your OSHA knight, right? So when you got an issue with OSHA, that's the man to call. So very good to have him here. So let's jump into it. I'm going to give you some background, right? Heat standards tried to get in federally in about 2019. This was proposed as a federal, proposed at the Senate and in the House, and it was going to require OSHA to establish enforceable standards for high heat environments. Cal OSHA already has these standards in place, right? And I'm sure that there's another state. I think Washington probably has this in place. Of course, it's Washington, and I wouldn't doubt it if Oregon as well. But most importantly, that's where what we're dealing with now really came into the public forum. Right now, this round, what we're dealing with, Miami-Dade County, local activist group We Count has been pushing for this legislation locally. When Mayor Levine Cava came in, I feel like issues like these kind of became a priority. She has a environmental, she has a environmental and climate safety office within her administration, and Miami-Dade County was one of the first municipalities to have a chief heat officer. They were given a grant. They used that grant, so now they have a chief heat officer in the county government, and I think that this will probably fall under that office's purview. A bill similar to this was submitted in the Florida legislature in 2021. It didn't get past committee in the House or the Senate. Okay, that wasn't going to fly in the House or the Senate in the state of Florida, and it didn't. We also worked kind of behind the scenes to make sure that everybody knew how that would impact our industry. More importantly, to be honest with you, we let them know the standards that our members have on their job sites, and the way you all take care of your employees and your workers, right? And I know you guys are a cut above the rest, so just putting that out there. So who does this ordinance target? Ordinance targets any company with 5 or more employees, all right? Or an employee responsible for a site, very important, regardless of whether such employees are directly employed by the responsible employer. I think whatever happens on the job site is eventually going to fall in the lap of the general contractor, whether it's a subcontractor or not. That's my opinion, okay? But basically, if there's no supervision for your subs, it's going to come down to the GC, because the GC knows that sub's on the site. You tell me if I'm saying anything wrong, Angelo.
No, I think regardless.
So I think we have your attention now. We've had it before.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and this is more for Angelo. Angelo, because you deal with a lot of the OSHA issues, we know that. So would this be something that where they could cite the general contractor and subcontractors individually as well? So that it would be like literally, if you look at it almost like under how OSHA looks at controlling versus creating
Right.
versus,
So
exposing.
I understand. So the way I read it, was set up. The general contractor would be exposing employer under the stamp.
Okay.
Okay, versus on the OSHA general duty clause, where they what they utilize their heat issues. You'd be a controlling contractor if it's a subcontractor who violated one of their guidelines.
Thank you.
So thank you, Debbie. So the term employee applies to independent contractors as well. So whether you're a direct employee or not, whether you have a direct employee or not on your job site, they fall under the purview of this ordinance. Companies engaged in agriculture or construction jobs or a combination thereof, that's lifted directly from the ordinance itself. A company with 1 or more of the employees that work 50% of their time outdoors. And this, very important, this covers companies working throughout Miami-Dade, whether you are in an incorporated city or not. So if you're in city of Miami, you're in Miami Springs, you're in Miami Lakes, doesn't matter. The county oversees this program no matter where you are at. So what's required by this ordinance? So you guys are going to need to maintain an outdoor exposure safety program. Most of you already have this. To begin with, must be written in English, Spanish, or Creole, and it must be on site and available to the worker or whomever the county sends to your job site for it. You got to have it ready to produce in all 3 languages. Okay? Oh, you're saying wow to this? Come on, man. Hang on. This is slide number 3. The program, under the program, you must train and inform your employees on heat illness identification, prevention, treatment, and first aid. That's all your employees. Okay? Questions? All right. So the trigger for these for the program itself is 90 degrees. I'm going to send a shout out to Brian Trusky and Phil Nana, because Brian was the one that let me know this came up. I was on vacation, so great way to ruin my vacation, making me read legislation when it came out. And then we kind of talked some things, and I understand, if I'm not mistaken, 81 degrees is the trigger for OSHA under the general duty clause. So this is higher than that. This is 90 degrees. You have to have someone to observe employees for alertness or signs of heat illness. Okay. By doing one of the following things: observation by a supervisor as a designee of 20 or fewer employees, a mandatory buddy system among your employees, or alternative means that they have to approve. So if you have another system, you can use it. You have to seek approval for Miami-Dade County. Okay?
Carlos,
Yes, sir.
I wanted to mention one thing too about training. So they define an employer. And when they say employer, they mean a general contractor or other person or entity responsible for a site may be considered an employer even where the employee is directly employed by a subcontractor. So if you read it literally, it means that you, as a general contractor, would likely be responsible for the training with respect to heat issues of all your subcontractors employees.
And the pin drops.
Yeah. No, and look, and as we move forward, you'll see, you guys are going to have issues because we all know that a job site, you have a rotating cast of folks that are coming on and off your job site. So that's something else you guys are going to manage. I'll be getting to that now.
And I'll add to that. I mean, while you may not have to directly train them under this, you would at least have to ensure that the subcontractor has trained.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm in marketing, so my head is thinking, is it possible for the GC to record a webinar or video and have them sign a checkbox that, yes, I sent it to my people, yes, I viewed it, so that they don't have to do it repeatedly, they just send them the video?
Sure.
Now, you're going to have to make sure that they sign off on seeing that video. And you'll see what I mentioned that in a little bit.
Yeah, there could be like an acknowledgement box at the end, like, yes, I watched it.
Mhm.
You could track that, how many minutes was watched, it was watched to completion. So.
Would you think the way you read it, you would need to get approval for the county for something like that?
No.
No? Okay, cool. That works.
I think as long as you have some proof of
That it was
training
completed.
that was completed, that would be sufficient.
I would say the best way would be to add it to the site safety orientation.
There you go.
And it's just done for everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's all another scoop. You guys find solutions. So regarding drinking water, obviously you all provide cool, potable drinking water on your job sites. But you are now going to have to make sure that you remind your employees every 2 hours to consume drinking water. So every 2 hours, you're going to have to make an announcement. Important, you need to provide 1 quart of water per hour for every hour of the employee's workday if plumbed water is not available. So I guess you guys are going to have some type of measurement or show the rotation with which you're providing water. So that's something else that you're gonna need to keep in mind. And then institute pre-shift meetings before the commencement of work to review the high heat procedures with all employees. So if you're doing a toolbox talk every morning, this will have to come up, okay? Again, triggered at 90 degrees. So, acclimatization processes. Bless you. So each employee newly assigned or reassigned to work in an outdoor environment shall be closely observed for the first 14 days of assignment. I don't know if there's a specific definition for closely observed, but you know, they have to be closely observed. Now, it's very important, it says during a heat wave, right? So a heat wave is defined as any day for which predicted heat index is at least 90 degrees and at least 10 degrees higher than the average high daily temperature in the preceding 5 days.
So every day in the summer.
So, well, right, so you're gonna have to have your calendar out, you know, and kind of track it, how it's gonna work, right? So it's at least 90 degrees. So if it's a day that's just really hot, hits 90 degrees, it's 10 degrees higher than it was, what, the average for the past 5 days, your clock starts right there. So you're in a heat wave. And you have to make sure that each employee has an effective means of communication. And on the ordinance itself, it's a cell phone falls into that definition. Any questions? No?
Has this been passed already, the bill?
No,
Proposed bill.
I'm gonna get that in the end. I'll give you guys the timeline of the bill. This is not has not been passed. So, recovery periods. You have to make sure that your team has uninterrupted 10-minute recovery periods in the shade every 2 hours, okay? Lunch counts. So lunch counts as a 10-minute. Within lunch, you can include that 10-minute shaded break, okay? Every 2 hours. You have to have one or more areas that has suitable shade for everyone without being into contact with one another, okay? Total number of employees participating in recovery period. And very important, an employee who exhibits mild to moderate symptoms of heat illness shall be relieved from duty, and they got to stay in the shade for 15 minutes or until you feel they're back and ready to go out into the field, no matter how long that takes. Okay. And obviously you have to provide medical care to that employee if it progresses beyond just a minor issue. Okay. Bless you. This is all basic stuff, right? So that you guys are already doing. But now you have someone watching over you. You guys can again propose a novel solution to this problem. That's not what they're asking for specifically, but you have to get approval from Miami-Dade County. Okay. So notice of employee rights. So you guys are going to be holding on to a lot more paperwork. So congratulations. Every employer that comes in within 10 days of their commencement, you have to give them the notice of rights that the county is going to be producing. Once you do that, they need to sign it or you need to prove. I'm going to send you that. You guys don't need to take pictures. I'll send this to everyone. No worries. I got you. So you're going to have it signed or prove that you tried to sign it. And you're going to have to maintain that for at least 60 days after the end of that employee's employment. Okay. And then you need to make sure that you have the sign with these rights visible on the job site, again, in English, Spanish, and Creole. Question for the great Angelo. Angelo, is the general contractor going to have to hold on to all the paperwork for the subs?
I would recommend they at least have a copy.
Yeah. So, congrats. So, you guys get to hold on to a lot of paperwork, especially on some of the job sites that I know you all run. Yeah, man, this is a nightmare, especially on a really large site. Because I'm sure that you guys aren't tracking every single new individual that comes onto the job site. And this is really gonna prove problematic. So for an agricultural firm, I can see this being feasible, but for a construction firm, this is, very problematic. So let's talk about enforcement. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Check out that highlighted section right there. This provision shall be liberally construed and applied to protect the public health, safety, and welfare and to accomplish the purposes of this chapter. Yeah, so, that's a bit of the scary part. The other part that scares me, any civil penalties collected by Miami-Dade County goes back to this department. So we're looking at two things here, right? They don't say which department is going to be enforcing this, number one. Number two, whichever department does enforce this keeps the fines they give. So this isn't going into the general fund for Miami-Dade County. This is going back into the department. So now what do you have? You have an inspector coming onto your job site whose salary is paid by the fines he gives you all, which is, yeah. So it's government at its finest, right? So that really incentivizes someone to come in and just nail your ass to the door. We can edit that out. So, yes, it's fine. We're adults. This also applies to county vendor or contractor or permittee to conduct private business on county property. Oh, sorry, guys. So amongst the penalties, there are financial fines, right? There's civil fines. And then there's a possibility for repeat violators of debarment from working at the county. So those of you who are working on county jobs, especially important for this. So I didn't include it, but there is a process for you to fight this. But it's this, I feel like this is going to be one of those situations, just pay it and get it over with. Civil penalties range from $300 to $3,000 for repeat violations. So first thing I asked Angelo this morning was, so are the violations per person? And his answer was no, right? He doesn't perceive that to be the case. I'm learning.
Well, I think, and you have it up there each day, so I think that's.
But there's the rub.
Right.
So it's each day of that violation. And we were discussing, it could be an employee going, hey, this has been going on since I came onto the job site 60 days ago. So boom. It's a big check for you all to worry about coming from Miami-Dade County. Important dates. We're wrapping up. This is fairly quick. Important dates that you all need to be aware of. This ordinance will be coming up to a vote at a committee meeting on September 11th. So it passed its first run through the Miami-Dade County Commission. All the commission members voted on it. I believe they voted on it unanimously. Move it out. It now comes to a committee, which is the Public Health Committee, where they will be reviewing it. Okay. If it passes that committee, it then goes back to Miami-Dade County, the full Board of County Commissioners. And that at that point, they voted into law or not. Okay. So we're going to be communicating with our county commissioners. I invite you all to be part of that process. You all may be on a safety specific email list. So there's certain things that we don't harass you about. We'll be harassing you about this. We'll be asking you to write emails. We'll be asking you to share your experiences. Let those commissioners know how you manage your job sites, how this is not necessary for our industry, for you guys and the way you guys manage your job sites and the additional difficulties that you all are going to face. I mean, I, as a citizen of this country and of Miami-Dade County, the whole fact that this is a self-funding office or agency is really troubling and should be troubling to you all as well. Yeah. So at this point in the meeting, anybody have questions for Angelo or myself?
So you had made mention that if the employee says, oh, it's been going on for 60 days and they're gonna fine you for those 60 days, how do you prove that? Like, that's like OSHA coming in, it's just an odd situation where Miami-Dade is gonna fine you for those 60 days. It could be a disgruntled employee.
Yeah.
Right, and say, oh, well, we haven't had this water or whatever, we haven't had the 2 hour 10-minute break every 2 hours for the last 60 days. And like you said, self-funding now. There you go. Here's a fine, $300 each day for 60 days. Is
Yeah.
that something that you have to, I mean, you have to fight in court, or you just, is there a way that they have to?
Very unclear how they enforce it. So, as with OSHA, you know, you go into an informal conference, and if you don't agree, then you contest it. And that goes before an administrative law judge. Here, there's no procedure set up yet as to how to contest it. I would presume that it would go to a circuit court judge for enforcement by by whoever's enforcing this, whether it be the chief legal officer or and his office or whoever. And then there you would be given the opportunity to present evidence. So you'd be involved in litigation. So yeah, that's right now how I see it going forward in terms of contesting. So one employee says 60 days, then you have 10 other employees who get on the stand. One says 10 days, one says 20 days, one says, no, we got water every day. It's a mess. And then the judge makes credibility determination. So just like any other litigation, you retain the risk and you pay litigation costs.
Yeah, but you're also spending money on the attorney.
That's what I just.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's almost like, what is it? Ticket
I
clinic,
don't know when to say it.
you know?
I had a couple of other comments I wanted to make.
Sure.
Just a couple of things that I was concerned about when I looked at this. It defines personal risk factors. And so the proposed ordinance requires you to be cognizant of certain personal risk factors so that you can determine what is needed for a particular employee in terms of eliminating the risk. The personal risk factors include age, health, pregnancy, degree of acclimatization, water, alcohol, or caffeine consumption, use of prescription medication, or other physiological responses to heat. Some of those you can't learn about because you're not permitted to under the Disability Act. Also, asking a female employee if they're pregnant is probably not a good idea either. Asking an employee how old they are is probably not a good idea because those will become exhibit A's when you get the wrong determinations. So very difficult, if not impossible, for an employer to determine risk factors based upon this definition. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there is also a retaliation provision. And what that means is that if an employee goes to his supervisor and says, I need water, there's none, and the employer says, get back to work, manager or field supervisor or foreman, get back to work, and the employee says, no, I'm not, I need water, and he's fired. He has a private right of action for retaliation for asking for water under this provision, proposed ordinance. They've not only created a system of penalties and fines set up for employers to meet the heat standard, they've also set up a private right of action for you to sue an employer.
Should we be cognizant of any employee on a site that goes to the hospital for heat illness or heat injury? A lot of times the ambulance in the hospital, they report back to OSHA. Will the county be receiving notification that way?
Right, well, if they're injured on the job, or if the hospitalization results from them being at work, you're required to report that to OSHA, yes. Now, whether there's going to be communication between OSHA and the county remains to be seen. OSHA will come in under their general duty clause and investigate, and they have their own guidelines, which are important to know what they consider to be acceptable practices to eliminate the risk of heat. But yeah, I mean, if they're hospitalized, if they're admitted to the hospital, then you have to report to OSHA. Whether they communicate that remains to be seen.
Another,
Let's give me 1 second. So listen, I'm gonna close it down. Does anybody online have any questions? So I'm gonna close this down and make this a closed session.